You're watching the Sports and Political channel of LB. If you're not subscribing to this channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share these videos on your social media platforms. Let's get down to business. So, a lot of moving parts in the NBA lately, as we're going to talk about two firings from two different teams. And we're going to start with the Wizards, as they fired the president of basketball operations and general manager Tommy Sheppard after 4 seasons. Now, none of the seasons that Tommy Sheppard has been at the helm of the Washington Wizards to where the Washington Wizards have obtained a winning record. Only one of the 4 years that Tommy Sheppard has been in charge has the Wizards reached the playoffs. What's up, Gideon? So he is a Ernie Grunfeld underling. He's been with the Wizards front office since 2003. He was promoted to GM in 2019 after they fired longtime executive Ernie Grunfeld. And he was promoted to president in 2021. Like I said, only one of the 4 years that Tommy Sheppard has taken this team to the playoffs, and they lost in the first round. Now, the Wizards have had 5 straight losing seasons, and Tommy Sheppard has been responsible for 4 of the 5 losing seasons. 2 years in a row, this team finished 35-47. You have a combination of poor roster construction, bad drafting, injuries, right? And even when these guys played together, and I'm talking about the big 3 of Kuzma, Beal, and Kristaps Porzingis. They played a total of 35 games this year. They are 16-19 in those games. They've missed badly on getting a point guard after the team traded John Wall. And this was after a video surfaced of John Wall throwing up gang signs. Now, mind you, John Wall, they gave John Wall the max contract. John Wall had not played in a couple of years because he was nursing he was nursing a knee injury, and then he tore his Achilles during rehab. Then they fired Scott Brooks, brought in Wes Unseld Jr. They drafted Rui Hachimura on to have him get traded to the Lakers, and he's flourishing on the Lakers right now. So you traded John Wall for Russell Westbrook, and then you traded Russell Westbrook to the Lakers for Kyle Kuzma and other players and picks. You had Spencer Dinwiddie on the team that you got in the signing trade with the Brooklyn Nets. That didn't pan out because him and Kyle Kuzma got beef. You traded him to the Dallas Mavericks for injured Kristaps Porzingis. And then you give Bradley Beal a $250 million extension. And you made him the face of the franchise. And look, with all these bevy of moves, right, it just hasn't worked. It just hasn't worked. Overall, his 4-year tenure as GM, the team went 129-179 with 1 playoff appearance in 2020 and 2021. Now, mind you, Tommy Sheppard, in an interview a few days ago, he was asked about his job status, and he brushed it off and looked at that reporter like she was crazy for even asking that type of question. Like he was certain that he wasn't going to get fired. Except that's exactly what happened to him. Now, this is my thing. It was poor roster construction. The whole idea of a stars and scrubs lineup, it just does not work. You need balance. If guys go down due to injury, you need guys that's going to step up and fulfill that role. You need to be able to draft well, and that's something that Tommy Sheppard has failed to do. You got a quality player in Rui Hachimura. You traded him to the Lakers. You drafted a guy by the name of Denny Avia. He's struggling with consistency. You draft a guy in the name of by the name of Corey Kispert. He sucks. Sure, he can shoot the three, but he can't do anything else. The team underperformed. Had re-signed three-time All-Star Bradley Beal to a $251 million contract. Had Kristaps Porzingis and Kuzma on the roster. The decision to re-sign Beal at a max salary with a no trade clause was widely panned within the fan base. Yeah, we was looking at that like a lot of people was looking at that like, why'd you do that? Bradley Beal hadn't shown you that he can win on a consistent level. Bradley Beal hadn't shown you that he can take a team to the playoffs. So why did you give Bradley Beal an extremely supermax contract with a no trade clause? And I told you that the Wizards was going to re-sign Bradley Beal. All these people was telling me I was capped. Was talking about that you don't know nothing about basketball. That Bradley Beal bought a home out in L.A. When it was all that, who told you that Bradley Beal was going to re-sign with the Wizards? Who told you that? I told you that. I told you all this. Nobody else told you this. I did. I told you before anybody else did. So who can replace Tommy Sheppard? Now he's looking outside the organization. They're going to try again with Masai Ujiri, a guy who they attempted to bring in before when they fired Ernie Grunfeld, and that didn't work out. And then you got the president of basketball operations for the Timberwolves and Tim Connelly. His name is being dangled around out there. Now, Tim Connelly, he's from Baltimore. And he used to work for the Wizards as an intern back in '96. So at this point, if you're going to fire the GM and the president of basketball operations, as far as I'm concerned, you might as well just go ahead and blow the whole thing up. The thing ain't working no way. It just hasn't worked. Now, if you look at it from a basketball standpoint, the team lacks a dynamic playmaker at the point. You lack a dominant big man that can control the paint, that can rebound, that can block shots and all that, and can act as a rim protector. One of the bottom 10, and you're in the bottom half in pace. Outside the big three, who else can score the basketball? So you don't have a bench, right? What is the defensive identity of the Wizards? Because that's why you brought in Wes Unseld Jr., right? It's just, man, it's just unacceptable. And whoever told the owner that team was good enough to contend for the playoffs, well, clearly they hadn't been paying attention to the roster. Because that roster construction is horrific. It has been. It has been. There's no way to sugarcoat it. This team has been mired in mediocrity for years now. Hell, if we can go back to decades. Last time the Wizards, when they were the Washington Bullets, last time this team played in the conference finals, my mama was pregnant with me. That was the last time the Wizards did anything of any relevance. My mama was pregnant with me. That was all the way back in 1979. That's the last time they played in the last time they played in the NBA Finals. They lost to the Seattle Supersonics. That was back in 1980. They won the championship in 79. So, as far as I'm concerned, Nick Nurse is gone. I mean, not Nick Nurse. Kyle Kuzma, Bradley Beal, he's staying, but Kristaps Porzingis is gone, and that's the Wizards' record. The last 4 years, Tommy Sheppard was at the helm of the Wizards. 25 and 47, that was the bubble year. 34 and 38, that's when they made the playoffs and lost to Philadelphia in the first round. And 235 and 47 seasons. Just unacceptable. And this guy got nerve to be smug and so confident that he wasn't going to get fired. Shit. As far as I'm concerned, Ted Leonsis, Ted Leonsis waited too long in firing this guy. All right, Gideon, what you got? What you got? Then we're gonna go to we're gonna talk about Nick Nurse.
Salute. What's cracking, slacking? I mean, the Wizards did a good job firing Tommy Sheppard. He's not a good GM. I mean, getting the wrong players, the wrong coaching staff. I mean, he's not a good GM. I mean, overpaying Bradley Beal. I mean, getting Kyle Kuzma, it was just okay at best. I mean, drafting the wrong players. It's like he's not a good GM. They haven't they missed the playoffs 3 out of 4 years. They won one playoff game against the Sixers in Game 4 when Ben Simmons choked those free throws, which Philly blew that game. This team's been a mess. The Wizards as a franchise have never been to a conference final. I mean, this team's been a mess, man. Horrible organization. Gesundheit, by the way.
I didn't sneeze.
Oh, you didn't sneeze? Okay. Oh, my fault. Terrible management. If you're Ted Leonsis, Ted, the Wizards owner, Ted Leonsis, is the right move because Tommy Sheppard just didn't make the proper moves to make this team better. And if you're a Wizards fan, you should be happy. And maybe the Wizards might get better in the future and might turn the ship around.
So that's pretty much all I have for that. I mean, it's it was a long time coming, and I'm glad that they finally decided to pull the trigger on this move.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what happens with that. Now, let's move on to this guy. Now, who was the guy that told you that Nick Nurse was on borrowed time in Toronto? I was one of the only ones that told you that Nick Nurse was on borrowed time in Toronto. I told you this I told you this before the season began that Nick Nurse was on the hot seat.
Mm-hmm.
Don't believe me? The video's still up. If you think that LB is on cap, that you just saying that now because hindsight's 2020, whatever like that. Go back and watch the video I did before the season began, and I made my predictions. I told you last year that the Hornets was going to fire James Borrego. What happened? The Hornets fired James Borrego. I told you last year that the Wizards was going to re-sign Bradley Beal. What the Wizards do? They re-signed Bradley Beal. There's a whole bunch of things I told people that they chose not to listen and won't give me my flowers when I can still smell them.
Mm-hmm.
I told y'all that Nick Nurse was on the hot seat in Toronto, and I told you why Nick Nurse was on the hot seat in Toronto. It was He worn out his welcome with the players. The players were tired of him.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when Masai Ujiri was like, well, we're looking for change. Yeah, the players were tired of him, especially considering that you had Pascal Siakam wanted out. You had OG Anunoby wanted out. You had, because these guys wanted to be traded. You had Fred VanVleet turn down a 4-year max extension. And, Chris Boucher was another guy that was in Nick Nurse's doghouse. So
Mm-hmm.
when you think about all that, and then the fact that they underperformed, despite the fact that they came back with virtually the same roster from last year, and then Scotty Barnes regressed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that had to do with with Fran VanVleet, Pascal Siakam getting their touches or whatever like that. Either way, it just didn't work. He regressed. So with that, Nick Nurse is out. You gotta believe that Ime Udoka is one of those guys that's on the short leash that Masai Ujiri is going to target.
Yep.
Now I'm pretty sure there's some other coaches, but I think Masai Ujiri really wants Ime Udoka.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the Rockets go, Steven Silas, another guy I told y'all that was on the way out of Houston. I told y'all that too. I told you why. Why did I say that Steven Silas was on his way out of Houston? Well, the team wasn't very good. The team hasn't developed, right? Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green had not developed into the players that the Houston Rockets envisioned.
Yeah.
The team was horrible on offensively, defensively, 3-point shooting. You name it, the Houston Rockets was horrific at it.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 years at the helm, and you have not only not gotten better, but you've gotten worse. You had to go. I told y'all that. I told y'all Steven Silas was on the hot seat. Look, man, if y'all want to be the last to know, y'all listen to ESPN. If you want to be the first to know, if you want to be ahead of the power curve and not behind the 8-ball, listen to me. I got my ears to the streets. I know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. I do. Now, what's your thoughts on this situation with Nick Nurse?
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it on the head. I mean, the Raptors pretty much fell to the bottom of the barrel. I mean, their execution was abysmal all year. They had no bench. I mean, Pascal Siakam had a good start, but he kind of died off the end of the season. Fred VanVleet was bad all year. OG Anunoby was inconsistent all season. Gary Trent was all season though. I mean, Nick Nurse didn't really use his bigs like that. Also, Otto Porter was hobbled all year. Also, another fact that they didn't really have any real rim protection, and the fact that this team had no real shot creation at all, and they didn't really attack the rim. And also, their execution was abysmal. Not enough give and go, no swing passing. Scotty Barnes was bad all season, though. This team was a mess offensively. And their defense was inconsistent at times, very inconsistent. And that's why this team pretty much fell to the wayside. I mean, with the same roster, they were the 5th seed last year, and they took Philadelphia 6 games. And remember, LB, they were down 3-0 to Philly and then won games 4 and 5, and then pushing to game 6, and then fell short. And then with the same roster, they pretty much fell off the radar. So the Raptors pretty much just couldn't recapture that same swagger. And, everyone deserved blame. I mean, the roster was flawed. Nick Nurse didn't have a good coaching season. I mean, the players didn't really listen to him. And, it was a bad year. The Raptors had no bench, no backup point guard. Will Barton was terrible, for them. It was bad. And then the game against the Bulls, they were breaking free throws left and right. They didn't run plays offensively. I mean, Zach LaVine took their soul, so did Pat Bev and DeMar DeRozan, Caruso, etc. And that's why this season just went off the rails, and that's why Toronto just became uber disappointing. And that's my opinion on this whole Nick Nurse situation. And I pray and I wish the best of luck to Nick Nurse. He's a good coach though. He's a good coach. He took the team that was pretty much Paul Pierce's and LeBron James's, daddy. Paul Pierce's and LeBron James's daddy, and it made him to a title contender. And it sucks that Nick Nurse has lost his jobs. But hey, if you're the Raptors, you gotta just blow this team up at this point and just start from scratch.
Well, see, I don't think. See, just when you think they're gonna blow it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just when you think they do that, Masai Ujiri does the complete opposite and finds a way to keep this team together. Now, it'll be interesting to see what they do now, because I had a couple theories in mind where if Nick Nurse got fired as he did today, I think a lot of them guys would stay. I think Fred VanVleet would re-sign with the Toronto Raptors, and Scotty Barnes and all them guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
As far as like the rotation go, there's going to be some massive changes because Nick Nurse ran a very tight rotation. Very tight. I mean, if you didn't get in the starting lineup, you was not cracking 30 minutes. I mean, he played his starters 30, 35 minutes a night. So if you was like a Chris Boucher or a Precious Oshawa, who was getting minutes until they traded for Jakob Poeltl, and then Precious Oshawa minutes went to shit. But when he was on the court, he was very productive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then Chris Boucher, another productive guy off the bench, can rim protect, can rebound, right? He had upside. So the whole trade for Jakob Poeltl was baffling, considering that one, Jakob Poeltl is a unrestricted free agent after this season.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Gary Trent Jr. He's an unrestricted free agent after the season. There's one more player I can't remember his name who was an unrestricted free agent as well, but he was a lesser guy down the depth chart. But I don't know, that trade to me just didn't make no sense when you already have bigs down there that can rim protect and rebound and stuff like that. So Nick Nurse is gone. If Ime Udoka don't end up on the Houston Rockets, rumors is going out saying that Nick Nurse will most likely end up being the next head coach of the Houston Rockets. That's the rumor I'm hearing right now. I mean, could this all change? Absolutely. But that's what I'm hearing right now. I wish the Chicago Bulls would fire Billy Donovan, but he just signed a contract extension last year, so I don't think he's gonna.
Yeah,
go
Will Barton has Will Barton's an unrestricted.
Will Barton, that's what it is. Will Barton, that's what it is. Will Barton. Will Barton was pretty much in the. Will Barton was pretty much in the can. Another guy that the Wizards brought in that, for whatever inexplicable reason, they brought him in from Denver. He had a consistent role on the Denver Nuggets, and then he gets on the Washington Wizards, and then he just
inconsistent.
For whatever reason, he ends up down there consistent. He was getting consistent minutes on Denver. Then he gets on the Wizards. He gets consistent DNP CDs. What's up, Will Hunter? Salute. Yeah, make sure I hit that like button too. So he gets Wizards can him, and then the Toronto Raptors brought him on, but he didn't really do anything in Toronto neither.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's where we at. So other firings you want to be on the lookout for. See what other firings, because we already had the shoe drop in Atlanta with
I'll be right back.
You already had the shoe drop with Nick McMillan. You already let him go. The way Casey got let go. Stephen Silas got let go. Now Nick Nurse got let go. But so this is where we at. This is where we at in the NBA coaching situation, right? Now, where did I go wrong in my predictions? I thought Greg Popovich was going to retire, but it looks like he's going to come back. I thought that who else? I thought Tom Thibodeau, but then again, I did say he had a good season that they was going to keep him. But I thought Thibodeau was going to get let go from New York, but he got them in the playoffs, so he's not going anywhere. I thought Ime Udoka would have gone to the Chicago Bulls, but I found out that the Bulls gave Billy Donovan a contract extension last year. So much for that. That's not going to happen. So there's a few things I got wrong. So I'm not gonna act like I'm the end all be all, but there's a few things I got wrong. But more often than not, when I see a player and a coach in the hot seat. So speaking of which, next year, Westside Sale Jr. is definitely on the hot seat next year. You can go ahead and put him, chalk that up. He's definitely in the hot seat next year. Another coach that's going to be on the hot seat next year is the coach out of Orlando. Can't remember his name.
Jamal Mosley.
Jamal Mosley, yeah, he'll be on the hot seat next year. Let me see. Chauncey Billups is going to be on the hot seat next year. Let me see.
What about even Mike Malone?
Mike Malone should have been fired. So I don't know what's taking the Denver Nuggets so long. It depends on if they have a playoff run. If they have a deep playoff run, then no. If they have a really deep playoff run, say like they make the conference finals or they even play in the NBA finals, then no.
Okay. Chris Finch. You think Chris Finch is on the hot seat next year?
Minnesota?
Yeah.
Yeah. And another guy I'm a point to is the coach in Memphis. I think he is going to be on the hot seat.
Taylor Jenkins.
Yeah. I think Memphis coaches on the hot seat too.
Yeah, Taylor Jenkins. Yeah, the Grizz got to get to the NBA finals at some point. Yeah.
So yeah, man. It's unfortunate that that this time of year come around and people have to lose their jobs and all that, but that's what they always say, man. You get hired to get fired, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
right.
It's unfortunate that that these guys will have to go through that, but it is what it is, right?
Right. Yes, it stinks. It stinks for some of these coaches because some of these coaches are good coaches. Like Nick Nurse is a good coach. I know he had a bad year, but he is a good coach, though. I mean, Turner Raptors team that was good before he came, but it was a team that never cracked the code. A team that never, it was always like a how can I say a square peg in a round hole. Like it was a team that never pretty much broken through, and then you get Nick Nurse, you get Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard, Marc Gasol, and they finally win a title, and then he loses his job right now. It's tough though. Like Steven Silas, I understood him being fired because he had talent, like Jabari Smith, Kevin Porter, Jalen Green, Marjanovic, Boban. He had talent on his team, and then they just never really cracked the code. KJ Martin though, and they never really became relevant though. So I understood Steven Silas being let go. So we just have to find out what happens here. What about Steve Clifford? You think Steve Clifford is on a hot seat next year. The Hornets are terrible next year. Steve Clifford.
To me, Steve Clifford should have never been hired in the first place. But this was a knee-jerk hire because the guy that they really wanted in Kenny Atkinson reneged on the deal, and he ended up going to back to Golden State.
Yeah.
So that's where we at on that. So
right. But these,
huh?
Right. I was about to say these playoffs. I know we talk about coaches here, but these playoffs are going to be great. You're enjoying the playoffs so far?
Yeah, but I'll talk about the playoffs in another video. I'm just not trying to make this thing longer than I'm not trying to make this video to be very long.
Right.
So I got work to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream on that note.
Okay.
All right. Now, if you guys not subscribing to this channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share these videos on your social media platforms. Shouts out to the LDBC. This your man. Scream at me. Oh!